Hey everybody, welcome back to The Pulse. We are diving right back into our series on advocacy, and today's episode is about information sharing. So we're going to jump right into that conversation. Let's do it.
I was talking about how the SEAs don't get enough information passed to them when they get a student. They're just like, here's the student.
Yeah, I hear that from parents a lot. That information just doesn't get passed down from even class to class, much less grade to grade, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's, the idea behind an IEP, though the actual implementation of the IEP leaves one with some questions at times. But IEPs offer, informal accommodations, learning style. They should have calming strategies in there. But yeah, school support plans not traveling with the kiddos as they matriculate is a problem.
I work with several SEAs and they all say like we get almost no information, and like they don't know like what to expect from the kid. They don't know like what might be triggering for them, what are good strategies to help them. And half the time they have to just, if they know who their last SEA was, they could go talk to them sometimes. But then if they don't, like especially like if they're going from elementary to high school, well now they're not even working in the same school. And they just kind of have to build everything from scratch, which is tough on the kid too, because they're going through a lot of tough stuff that they might not have to go through if more information was passed along.
Like calming strategies that may have been acceptable in one class or one grade, you move on to the next school, and people expect you to act your age or act older or act essentially.
In elementary school, it was like way quieter, way less chaotic. But then in high school, it's like all of a sudden there's like way more kids, way more noise, everything's louder. It's like that, yeah, specifically for the student, the transition is a lot.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever have substitute teachers in school? I'm sure you did.
Yes.
Did
Yes.
you find that kids took advantage of that teacher?
Quite frequently, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I think I was always just excited to have a substitute.
So why was that? Were you excited about getting away with more?
No, I guess sometimes it felt like a kind of like a day off. I think like at least I remember like when I was like in choir, it's like I like choir, but whenever like we had a substitute, it was always like we kind of get like a break that day. Or like if I don't normally like the teacher, like I think more like in high school, if I don't normally like the teacher as much, I always like the substitute more.
Yeah.
Or that one time, like I had a substitute like in one of my math classes, and there was like a substitute that day, and it's like normally the teacher like it was difficult for me to understand, but then like the substitute, I'm like I'm understanding, I'm enjoying this class, I'm confused why I'm happy now.
Right? Like I found that with several different substitutes through my years in school was like the way that the regular teacher was teaching it just was not clicking with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then a substitute came in and they taught it just a little bit differently, and I was like, oh my goodness, now I suddenly understand the subject so much better.
Yeah, like I got home that one day and I'm like, I enjoyed math class today. That was weird. I didn't think it was a subject you were meant to enjoy.
Yeah.
So when I was a teacher, I was very regimented and glued to the kids and their development, and I didn't want them to regress if I was away for a day. If we just worked on a great skill and they finally got it and I was sick the next day, we were going to lose that. So I was a little bit obsessed with preparing potential subs. So I had like a ready to go packet for any sub that came into my room, and it would go through the entire schedule of the day depending on the day of the week.
Yeah, I think most of my teachers like gave pretty like detailed and good like notes for the substitute.
if you really like your teacher and find you communicate well with your teacher, and then suddenly there's a sub and you got no idea how to communicate with this person.
Yeah, but it's like when I like the teacher, it tends to be that when there's a sub, I don't like the sub. It's just yeah, it throws that class off, and it's just yeah.
A lot of parents have communication binders with their children's teachers. And I think that's fabulous. But also, a lot of parents, when they ask for that, they aren't getting it, which I think is really hard on the parent because if they're asking for it, it's because they want to know how their child's day was. It's important to them. Parents aren't going to ask for that if they don't need it because it's just one more thing that they have to do in their day.
Like with my brother's day program, my mom asked for a communication binder, and it really depended on who he was with that day, how well that went.
Mhm.
Because some of the workers at his program were really great at filling out the communication binder, making sure it was clear, and other ones were just like, "Yep, we went bowling." And in the one program, he was actually being bullied by one of the other participants, and my mom didn't find out about it until he came home with a piece dug out of the back of his hand one day, and he was actually trying to hide it from us because he doesn't understand that just because somebody says they're your friend doesn't mean they're your friend. And so he's like, he can't be a bully, he's my friend. And so he was trying not to get his friend in trouble and hiding it from us, and I noticed it. I was like, Mom. And she eventually got out of him what happened and talked to the program, and they're like, yeah, so there's been stuff going on for a while. And she's like, why wasn't this in the communication binder? We could have been dealing with it so much earlier. He doesn't stand up for himself. That is a bad thing, that he is not standing up for himself. It's good that he's not being aggressive, but it's bad that he's not standing up for himself, and we need to teach him that it's okay to do that when things like this happen.
Yeah, I also think that it should be more taught to like autistic kids about like what friendship is and like the different like levels of friendship, because that also would have helped me. Because I feel like I never really had like, I like looking back, like learning what friendship is now. I'm like, I don't think I ever had a best friend. I didn't really have anyone I could talk to, but like I sort of like I had people that like I hung out with like at school and like for like birthday parties and stuff. But like same with like if your brother had known like that like what friendship looks like, then he might have been able to stand up for himself and known that that person
Yeah.
wasn't a friend.
Yeah, well, eventually they started uh doing workshops around what friendship is and what bullying looks like and stuff, and that a friend, somebody who says they're your friend, can be a bully. And it came out of my mom finally finding out that this was happening and being like, this is not okay. We need to teach them to stand up for themselves and the right way to do it and what a friend looks like. And so
Mhm.
eventually they did do that in his program, but it could have been going on a lot earlier if they had actually been properly communicating through that communication binder.
Like, what are your thoughts on digital information sharing?
Well, we now have a program called Life 360 where our family unit can share location via phone GPS. I will say it uses quite a bit of phone battery,
Mhm.
but it has been a lifesaver a couple of times.
That brings us to like doctors and sharing information across the medical spectrum. Um, so the only thing I really know for sure is that I was able to get my doctor to send me my medical records so that wherever I go, I have those. Had I not asked for those, I don't know that I would be able to take that information with me anywhere. And it's like 15 years worth of medical information. If I didn't have it, I have epilepsy, I'm autistic, I have several other um, problematic diagnoses. But so if I didn't have that information and I needed to get help down the road, I mean, all they have is my word, and doctors can't just go on your word. Like they've got to try to get as much information as possible. So I highly recommend getting a copy of your medical records.
They're supposed to give you access to any medical records that you ask for because it's your information.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't, you can call them out on it. There are definitely ones that won't. Also, if your doctor leaves, they are supposed to switch you to a doctor of your choice without charging you to transfer your records. The doctor's office that I was originally with over COVID, my family doctor left because she was already really busy. She worked for the hospital, the clinic, and she had gotten on the medical board. And I guess when everything went down with COVID, she just didn't get a chance to go, "Hey, I'm leaving," for all of her patients. But the office was supposed to do that, and they didn't. And then they tried to charge me to get my medical records transferred after they transferred it to a different doctor at their clinic without my permission, who I never really wanted to have access to my file because I did not like that doctor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my mom helped me with that one. But yeah, so you can run into some offices that may try and do that to you, but it is actually illegal for them to transfer your file without your permission. Also, to charge you for transferring to the doctor of your choice if your doctor leaves.
How do you find? So we talk a lot about communication while visiting a doctor. Like if you have a parent or an advocate or somebody with you, we talk a lot about the physicians or nurses addressing the support person rather than the person is there to be seen.
Yeah, it's at least if like the person is like maybe like a teenager or like a kid, talking to the parent or the support worker at least makes some sense.
Right? Yeah, I've definitely had some places where I show up with a support person and they talk to my support person and I'm like, "I'm right here. They are just here so I don't forget anything. Or if I have trouble communicating in this moment, I have already communicated it all to them." It's super frustrating. I'm very happy my family doctor isn't that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like even with my brother who has some pretty severe communication struggles, like he addresses him and tries to and like asks him questions and tries to get the answers from him, even with our mom standing like right there. He's really good at that and making my brother feel seen and heard. But yeah, there's definitely been like dentists or other places that we've been where they like address our mom or our sister or whoever comes with us. And it's like, that's really degrading.
Yeah, like when I've like gone to like my doctor and like I had my mom there with me, they like one because she knew more of like what was actually going on, so she could explain and stuff. But like my doctor very much like looked at me and like addressed me, and that like when it was just me talking to her, like she like looked at me and stuff. Like wasn't looking to my mom unless my mom spoke instead.
Yeah, and our mom and our sister are the same way. It's like if they address them, they're like,
Mm-hmm.
"You," or like with my brother, it takes a bit more prompting. So they'll turn to him and be like, "What do you think?" Or like they'll if they feel like the question was worded in a way that's tough for him, they'll reword the question to him and get him to answer.
Awesome.
With the doctors that talk to them. But doctors should just talk to the person who is there for to see them, no matter what their communication struggle is. Even if the person cannot speak to you and communicate to you verbally, it's still going to feel degrading for them if you're just talking about them like they're not there. And even at the beginning of the appointment, like turning to them and being like, "Is it okay if I talk to your mom or your support person about what's been going on with you?"
The same way, yeah, if there's like ASL interpretation or like some yeah like interpreter there, like talk
Yeah,
to the person, don't talk to the interpreter.
But it comes, I mean, that's, exactly what we're talking about is sharing medical information. Our doctors should be able to share that with us, and that includes having a conversation with us. Like you're right, ASL or like text to speech devices or any other sort of augmented device that will help or aid in the communication um, should be encouraged. And I think doctors and hospitals should have that stuff in place. I just do. Maybe I'm expecting a lot, but if you don't expect great things, you don't get great results, right?
I mean, having pictures there to use or something where your patient can type. There are some people even with anxiety who get really anxious going into the doctor, and even though they're not autistic, they struggle to speak.
Mhm.
And I know some people who have severe anxiety without being autistic who just find when they're really anxious, it is easier to write or just like point at things or whatever it is. And they are technically considered not to have communication struggles. They have anxiety, but like those things can help so many different people. Somebody who English is their second language, if you have pictures in the room that you can use where maybe they're not understanding you as well because you only speak English and they're still learning it, then using those pictures can be super helpful for them to understand without talking to that third party person that they've brought as a translator.
That does it for this week's episode of The Pulse. Join us next week when we finish off our series on advocacy by talking about research. We're going to talk about where to find research studies, how to get involved in research studies, and the possibility of designing some of these research studies. We hope you join us next week for finishing up that conversation. In the meantime, as always, if you have ideas, topics you'd like us to discuss, please send us an email to voa@pacificautismfamily.com. We look forward to hearing more of those great questions. Thanks again for joining us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks.
That does it for this week's episode of The Pulse. Join us next week when we finish our advocacy series and we talk about research, getting involved, how we can be there, the kinds of things that we really want to know, or how to figure that out. As always, if you have ideas or topics you'd like us to discuss, send us an email to voa@pacificautismfamily.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks so much.